Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. Today's actually December 21st. We're recording this episode ahead of the holiday so we can enjoy our holiday without having to take time away from our families. Family's important to us, but having some content for Yins, guys is also important. So, like last week, we have something a little more fun for you. We had a bunch of these ideas planned for the off season, assuming there would be times when news is slow. So we're just going to throw a couple of at you. This is a pretty good time to do it, especially with the lockout and everything. So this week, we're going to talk about our favorite Bucco players. A reminder right out of the gate, though, we want to hear from you guys about your favorite players over the years as well. Let us know. We had a couple people kind of send in some names of guys they kind of thought were really good and you know, the stuff that we talked about last week. So send us a message, Facebook, Twitter, we'll get it. Facebook, Twitter, probably a pretty good way, but also you could just comment on the YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. So all of that stuff. So anyway, my name's Josh. Joining me as always is my brother Jake. What's up?
How we doing, man?
Doing pretty good.
This is gonna be fun.
It is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do this. A little like position wise.
Mm-hmm.
So over the years, just our favorite Pirates players. We're going to do it based on position, which may limit some players, I think. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I know it would, someone like Katie, it would limit her because they'd all be catchers. You know what I mean? It's just the way.
Yeah.
Aside from Kutch, they're all catchers.
Mm-hmm.
But Cervelli, Martin, Domit, Kendall, you know what I mean? Like those are, There's her top 5 list of Pirates players. Over, maybe not, I don't know, but pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
You ready to just get started?
Yeah,
listen, guys, it's Christmas time. We're doing this midweek. We're just trying to kind of get through this, and we just thought we'd have some fun with it. So, you want to kick it off? How are we going to do this? Are we going to go like, you want to start with position numbers like pitchers and go down? Do you want to start with position players, hit pitchers last? How do you want to do it? Or you want to go?
Matter.
Do you want to go completely random and just say, I'm going to name this one, and then we'll go?
We'll just start at the catcher and go through the positions, and then do the pitchers at the end.
All right, let's do that. All right,
that's how my list is written. So let's.
Yeah, that's how I wrote mine too. So catchers, I feel like it's kind of been stacked as of recent, which makes sense. I mean, you know, we're not 80, so we didn't get to see a lot of the really good teams. So a lot of times you don't get favorite players from not watching.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, who you got?
I think it's the same thing as everybody's got. It's Jason Kendall. I mean, he was a blast to be able to watch.
Yeah.
Just always grinding.
And he was here the longest, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As far as like I said, guys that we watched.
Yeah.
So some of the longest tenured guys, I mean, he was there 9 years. There's some other guys too. Sanguian was 8. You know what I mean? You had some of those guys. I think it'd be interesting to know, like, if anybody's in that, like, Don Slott, Mike LaValliere, Spanky.
Oh, I know our cousin would be. He loves Spanky.
Spanky. He used to push your hat down and call you Spanky all the time.
Yep, all the time.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's Jason Kendall for me too, but really close second is Russell Martin. I know he wasn't here long, but he's a very close second for me. it's the home run off Cueto. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's the turn of that team after all the losing, and he was there for it. And so there's a lot there.
Yeah. I mean, he's on my list. I mean, when I
I
went through this and I started doing this, I got like 5 people almost every position because
yeah.
I just enjoyed watching, Martin. And like you said, it's been stacked lately. Martin, Cervelli, Stallings. I
Yeah.
enjoyed watching Stallings play.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, of all the years, like when you look through and you remember like the years of Rod Barajas
Oof.
and you know what I mean? Even like going back after Kendall, when you look through the list of catchers after Kendall, Humberto Cota, Ryan Domet, David Ross for that, for that year. But Benito Santiago at like 40,
Yeah.
100 years old. But Ronnie Paulino a couple years. Um, Jason Jaramillo. And then you got into like Chris Snyder. And then I'm actually looking. So like I got, 2011, you talk about Domit. Here's the list
Oh
of
my
catchers from
gosh.
2011. Ryan Domit, Michael McHenry, Chris Snyder, Jason Jaramillo. Is that Dusty Brown? Eric Fryer, Mike Pagnozzi, and Ronald. Is it Ronald? No. Who's Torregas? I'm looking it up. Wyatt. That's it.
What?
Wyatt Torregas. I remember that name now. Matt Pagnozzi, not Mike. I mean, 8 games combined for those two guys. So let's not get,
Yeah.
But it was Dusty Brown, Jason Jaramillo, Chris Snyder. Dude, and then that was 2011. And then you had 2012, and that was the year of Barajas and McHenry when we couldn't throw anyone out.
Yeah.
You remember? You know what I mean? And they split it pretty good with McHenry being better than Rod Barajas, even though Barajas played more games.
Yeah.
And then Russell Martin came in 2013, and he was there for those 2 years. And it was enough for me to I mean, he was awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
It
he
hasn't
was
been
good.
matched since. I mean, Cervelli
No.
had, his first year with us was really good, and he was still good, and he was still on that playoff team and on that team that won 98 games.
Mm-hmm.
But 4.1 and 5.7 WAR for a catcher. I'm not sure that. I mean, outside of Jason Kendall, there's not many catchers that got to that number.
Right.
Manny Sanguillen got to 4.7 one year and 5.0 one year. So, I mean, Sanguillen
Tony
had some good
Pena got a
years.
5.9,
Tony
84.
Pena, yeah. Yeah, I didn't even say Tony Pena.
He had a 3.8, 3.5, 5.9, 4.1.
Yeah, you start going like real old when you start looking like early 1900s. George
Yeah.
Gibson was the other guy who played 9 years in Pittsburgh. And I'm like, yeah, I don't remember hearing about George Gibson.
Not to be rivaled with Josh Gibson.
Certainly not.
Played
But
in the
anyway,
Berg area.
yeah. So Jason Kendall, but very close second, Russell Martin. If Russell Martin spent 5 years in Pittsburgh, it'd be him. 2
Yeah.
years, and to be right there with Jason Kendall, who caught 9 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My favorite position for the Pirates is next.
No, it ain't.
No, it ain't.
No, it ain't.
No, it ain't. First base.
John Jaso.
No.
I'm kidding.
You better be. First base
No.
has been a pretty historically rough position.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say historically, but certainly recently.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Sid Bream. Like Sid Bream. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Last, like, really solid first baseman.
Thought you were on the LaRoche train.
LaRoche was like 2 years, though. I mean, it's the same as like LaRoche is the same as Russell Martin. I know he was here for like half of his last year before we got traded, but like those numbers were not even close.
Right.
He had 2 solid years in Pittsburgh, but certainly not enough to be considered. And he wasn't my favorite player on that team, that's for sure.
Right.
But like, I don't know. Jason Thompson, I don't remember that name. Early 80s Jason Thompson. Looks like he was 5 straight years our first baseman, and one of them putting up a 4.8 WAR season. So you could call him, like, I would say he was a solid first baseman right before Sid Bream. But I don't remember that name, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah. I was born in 83, the year after he had a 4.8 WAR, so I certainly don't remember him. I do remember Sid Bream, but probably more so as the guy who slid into home.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? I remember Gary Reedus in one of those years when Bream was still on the team, but Gary Reedus played a lot. And then after him, I certainly remember Orlando Merced.
Yeah.
But still not, had a good year, still not a solid, like, a first baseman who you know is going to play first base.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say Kevin Young was that guy. He was the guy that was going to play first base every game for multiple years, but he was kind of hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
Good defender, had a really good, looks like 1999. Okay. 26 homers. Yeah, that was kind of his stretch. 98, he had 27 homers, 26 homers, 20 homers. Then it kind of tapered off a little bit. But 99 was the year he had 298. And you know what I'm saying? Like those were his years. Kevin Young was he would have been a really good first baseman.
Yeah.
Brought us into PNC Park. You know what I mean? I always think of that.
Yep.
Still probably he's on the list of like guys, right? So Orlando Merced, because I remember like that's when I was like young and they were really good, and I remember that year with Orlando Merced and that whole thing. But then it was Kevin Young, and then because I'm still a little bit of a history buff, Willie Stargel.
I mean, Stargel's got to be on everybody's list, right?
Kind of, just because of 79, like he was only a first baseman for a couple of years.
Sure.
But he was that 79 team. He was like the guy.
Yeah.
And that was his, like, he won MVP. He, you know what I mean? The World Series. But I honestly, this is our favorite, right? We're not saying this is the best. These are our favorites. No. And I have one guy who's making my favorite first baseman for the Pirates.
You've already named like 3.
No, those are so Merced, Kevin Young, Willie Stargel, those are the guys that are kind of like on that list. But there's one guy who I will say is my favorite. Like as far as a fan.
Okay.
Sean Casey. 1 year, I know, and it wasn't, Sean Casey's my favorite. I love that dude.
Yeah.
I listen to his podcast now, dude. He's a blast.
Mm-hmm. So I had Casey on my list.
Did you?
I did. The mayor. But I also had another guy that you haven't touched on.
I haven't mentioned?
You have not mentioned this guy.
Okay.
And I just enjoyed watching him play. He was not the best, but Randall Simon was a blast.
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember when he hit the sausage?
Is that on your... Well, yeah, but that...
I mean, he was on the bench for that, but listen, the dude was a riot.
Okay.
I just liked watching him play.
And guys, so was that your favorite? Or he's just another guy on your
No,
list?
I really didn't have a favorite first baseman. I got to be honest, because it's just been since I've been watching. I mean, I know you dogged on it, but like Garrett Jones is on my list too.
Yeah. And not
I just
even
enjoy. It's,
one time was started more games than anyone else at first base.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, Garrett Jones is a lot of guys. We talked about that last week. A lot of guys really loved Garrett Jones, and he wasn't really a cornerstone piece of that team,
No.
but a lot of people gravitated towards him. Big, tall guy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I know he's probably one of our dad's like favorite players. He was one of
Oh
his.
yeah. Yeah.
But
I was honest though. Like, I mean, I liked watching him play, but I knew he wasn't that good.
yeah, I mean, like we said though. I mean,
Enjoyed him.
he had a few solid years hitting some big home
Yeah.
runs, and not like 35 home runs, but I think he had a year where he hit 27. Is that right?
I think so.
Is that his most? Yeah, 27 was his most, and that was his 2012. The year it kind of fell apart. That was the year that he played the most games at first, right? No, the 2010.
No.
So in 2012, he hit 27 home runs, probably his best season, and he didn't play more games at a single position than anyone else. Like he just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have to go down to the fielding here for 2012. Looks like he played 72 games at first and 66 games in right. So really even
Mm-hmm.
between the two. And who played first that year more than anybody else? Casey McGee.
Casey McGee.
Casey McGee played 77 games, Jones 72. And in right field, it was Jose Tabata.
Jose Tabata.
77 games, 66 for Garrett Jones. That's that Jose Tabata. And Presley playing the most games in left field that year.
Yeah, I was actually
Alex
when I was
Presley.
looking through this, I was like, okay, Alex Presley moved Tabata to
Yeah, he moved Tabata,
right field.
Which really it was. I mean, Marte played 43 games, and I think he kind of knew Marte was coming that year, and maybe that's why the switch. But because Tabata only played 15 games in left field the year before that, when Garrett Jones played the most games in right field. There you go, 90 games in right field in 2011. Garrett Jones, I'll give you Garrett Jones there. Sean Casey's my guy. And like I said, I know it was only, what year was that? 2006? Yeah. 2006.
His little hitch in the box every time you lift that back foot up.
Oh, yeah. We did that all the time. I know he was a Red for most of it, but he's a Pittsburgh guy. You know what I'm saying? Upper St. Clair. And you listen to him, dude, he is Pittsburgh all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fun. Good job. He didn't even play the whole season with us. Like, we traded him that year. He played 59 games with the Pirates, and I just told you he's my favorite first baseman. I was jacked when they signed him. I was like, yeah, bring him back. And then I was like, dang it. All right, second base, because I think this is a loaded position.
Oh, my gosh. It was so hard.
You made a comment before we hit record. I want you to make that comment.
I think it's probably the best position in the history of our organization.
So he's saying pound for pound.
Pound for pound. Not the superstars, but it's just been a solid position for us forever.
Yeah. If you go down through the history, it is a very solid position. All right, who you got? And I want the whole thing. Like, we've been going over this. I want the whole thing because I've got 6 guys written down.
Yeah, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5, and I kind of just quit writing stuff down.
I've been alive longer than you.
I could have went 6.
Go ahead. Let me talk it out.
Tony Womack, Jose Castillo, Freddie Sanchez, Neil Walker. Adam Frazier. I could have put down Harrison, but I mean, it's just loaded. I like
So
all of those
you didn't write
guys.
down Bill Mazeroski? I know we didn't watch him,
I
but
didn't, but then that's the only reason why. The only reason why.
so
I mean, I could have wrote
he's
down Phil Garner too,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, Phil Garner was a little different for me. So, a little history there. We've got an aunt who Phil Garner was like her favorite player ever, and got to know him. And so when he was managing teams, we got to go to games for free, sit in the family section to see whether it was the I don't really remember, and I'm sure you don't remember when he managed the Astros, and we got to go see them more often. Our older brother does.
Yeah.
He even got to go down in the hallway by the clubhouse and get a picture
Mm-hmm.
with Nolan Ryan. I don't
Yep.
really remember that very much. I remember when he was with Milwaukee. I remember going up to Jacobs Field and watching
Yep.
the Brewers play when they were in the American League. That's what I remember the most.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of like a Phil Garner kind of tie there. You know what I mean? Getting to chat with him was pretty cool.
Yeah. But I mean, you look down through and it started. I mean, it's really started when Stargel
Yeah.
Mazeroski took over, and when Mazeroski, I don't remember Cash. I mean, I don't recognize that name, but a
Dave
2.5,
Cash, right? Oh
3.5,
yeah, dude.
1.8 WAR. Then Rennie Stennett,
Yeah.
7 hits in a game against Chicago. You know what I mean? Like then he went into Phil Garner. I mean, it was just loaded.
Yeah. But I mean, there's other guys on this list. I mean, you go pretty far back, but I'm sorry. Man, yeah, I don't really recognize some of these names, but Miller 4.6 WAR. How do you say that? A Baticcio 3.6 WAR. Holy moly! I mean, you know what I'm saying? Some good guys, but also Claude Ritchie. I remember that name. He was there for a long time, early 1900s, only because like you knew
Mm-hmm.
that he was one of the guys that played with Wagner and Clark and them. But but I remember that name just from looking at stuff. But I mean, he was solid 3.8, 4, 3.3, 3. I mean, a lot of high wars. But Danny
Yeah.
Murtaugh, who was, the manager that we know, he played second.
Yep.
Um, I don't remember. I don't remember this name, but George Grantham was a second baseman for the Pirates back in. I know I saw that name, George. Oh, right here, back in 25 and 20. Well, 27 looks like he didn't as much, but because he was playing. I'm looking at the wrong position here. He played it in 27. He played first base in 25. He played second base in 27.
And then played first in 28, and then played
Yeah.
29 and 30 at
There you go.
second base.
Yeah, I was when I said 25
He
and
jumped
27.
around.
But he was, 1927, going to the World Series against the 27 Yankees, getting absolutely smoked, 3.8 WAR. And then and then comes back 3.8 and 4.0 and 29 and 30. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty rich, and then you get to Mazeroski after all that, and obviously Dave Cash, Rennie Stennett, like you were saying, Phil Garner. You know what I'm saying? Like Johnny Ray, he had some big years at second base in the '80s, and then one of my guys, Chico Lean, Jose Lean. Oh my gosh, I didn't even write down Carlos Garcia. I loved him too.
Yeah, you did.
I loved Carlos Garcia. I didn't even write him down. He wasn't as good. I mean, Chico Lean had like a great year, and then, and then whatever. But I loved Garcia. We talked about Warren Morris a little bit last week. he had that really good year, and then you said Tony Womack. I thought that was fun. Pokey
I
Reese.
liked Womack. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jose Castillo, I like that one. Not necessarily like great, but
he was fun to
he
watch
was.
because, man, when Wilson would flip him the ball and they'd turn double plays like crazy, man.
Yeah. Okay, so Freddie Sanchez, you said Freddie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Neil, I think the last four. I mean, because if you count Freddie Sanchez, I mean, obviously you do. I know we had the conversation. I know he won the batting title playing third base mostly, but he was making his transition. So that was his big year, was when he was playing a lot of third.
Mm-hmm.
But he was still like a good player, 2.7, 1.2, 1.7 WAR. And then you go right into Neil Walker, which, you know, his 6 years were all, you know, plus player above two WAR every year, right? Yeah, every year with a couple threes mixed in there. So, and then you went from him into Josh Harrison, which was the same sort of thing, which he may have provided more of his value when he was bouncing around. But then the next guy who probably provided a lot of WAR or a lot of value when he was bouncing around.
Yeah.
In Adam Frazier. So like the last two have been started off as a guy who bounced around, I'll play anywhere, and then worked my way into solidifying myself at second base. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So who's your bold? Who's your guy?
I'm gonna say it's a toss up between Frazier and Walker.
Yeah,
and then Sanchez is super close third.
So I would say my toss up is between Neil Walker and Josh Harrison. I mean, I just couldn't. When Harrison was bouncing around, he was the guy that kick-started everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Neil Walker was, when he was a second, he was the guy who hit, like, he was just consistent.
Yeah.
A catcher, third baseman, second, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was all over the place as well, but not really with us at the major league level. He really locked it in at second.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh kid, you love that whole thing. Harrison's not much. I mean, like, he's just from Cincinnati, so, I mean, he's still kind of a local-ish. I mean, when you're talking about the major leagues, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of a local-ish guy. And we're from Ohio. I know closer to Pittsburgh than anything else, but you know what I mean? You had a little bit of that, but nah, Harrison was just fun to watch. So it's between him and Walker for me. Frazier's there, Sanchez, Chico Lean, and then because I'm a little bit of that historic guy, Bill Mazeroski, I still love he's been around a lot, so he's easy to root for. He's also from right down the river. He's another one of those guys that grew up in Ohio, but right there on the river, basically grew up in the Pittsburgh area, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, second base is a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's a lot of
I
players
love
to
that
pick
Neil
from.
Walker's around again.
Yeah.
I hope that stays for a long time.
Yeah, he's good in the booth.
I like him.
Mm-hmm.
I know right now it's a little bit different, and there's some guys saying like, oh, he talks about himself a lot. Yeah, but Greg Brown kind of makes you talk about yourself a lot.
Yeah,
And once he's told a lot of the stories, they'll come up a lot less often. I hope he gets an opportunity to find a way to talk about himself. Or not to talk about himself, but to tell stories. Like when you would hear Steve Blass tell a story about Clemente.
Yeah.
Or just any story from his playing days. Or you'd hear Bob Walk bring it up. It's not like it's everything he talked about, but you liked hearing him talk about when he played. And the same thing with...
I didn't like hearing Steve Blass talk about anything.
I loved hearing him talk about Clemente. just because he knew the guy.
Yeah.
And not a lot of guys, you know what I mean? He spoke so highly of him, and I loved it. I mean, I also just like to hear from a guy who won a World Series.
Sure.
But, I mean, it's better than the stories that John Wayner can tell, but I also like hearing him talk about when he played. Yeah. Anytime a guy played pro ball, you want to tell me a story about when you played pro ball, I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, speaking of John Wayner, third base is next, because that's how I do things. I know a lot of you guys would have went to shortstop, but third base is 5, shortstop is 6.
Yep. I mean, I have third base next on my list.
Of course you do.
Hands down, favorite guy to watch is Hayes.
Already.
He's so fun to watch.
So
it's incredible.
He's your favorite third baseman right now.
He's my favorite third baseman right now.
Or I'm sorry, of the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
He's already there.
He's already there for me.
Probably one complete season. I mean, he's is there. That fun, and he's on my list. He is not my favorite.
I know who your favorite is.
I know you know who my favorite is.
And he's on my list too.
Yeah. So give me your list, and then you can tell me who my favorite is.
I got Hayes, Ramirez, and Petey.
That's my 3. Put Freddie Sanchez on there. You want a batting title playing? How about Rob Makoviak?
Rob Makoviak would be on my list of just in general Pirates.
We love that. We should have made it.
He's not my favorite at any position.
Okay, so what if we did a position? What if we did a utility player position? That would be hard to do because there might be something that you would consider utility player and somebody else might not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't realize, like David Freese played third and first. That doesn't count.
No.
Shortstop and second base, that doesn't count.
Basically, in my opinion, if you're a utility player, you had to play infield and outfield.
Infield and outfield, or, yeah, that's probably
true.
Even
if it was one position.
Because I kind of throw the corner infields and the middle infields together. So if you tell me that, like, you also played some first and second and short, like Eric Gonzalez, even though, like, yes, he played a couple times, he didn't play outfield.
No.
But would he be considered a utility player? He played all 4 infield positions.
He did, but...
And often.
Yeah.
That's what makes it different. We put him at first base quite a bit. He played all 3 other infield positions quite a bit. Not that he would be on my favorite list by any stretch of the imagination. But if you play all 3 outfield positions, no, you're just an outfielder.
Yeah.
But when you start sprinkling in, like, all of the infield positions, I start to give it to you. If it's second, third, and short, you're just an infielder.
Yeah.
But I think when you start throwing in first base too, you are showing a little bit more versatility. Being able to play first base while playing all 3 other positions.
I don't know. I think you got to play both infield and outfield to be considered complete
So that'd
utility.
be fair. So Makoviak would qualify there. Harrison, Frazier, Sean Rodriguez. Those would be some of my favorites. But Harrison would take it for me too because he was one of my favorites. Period. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we're not doing that.
Nope.
So those are my 3 first basemen. So who's my favorite?
Your favorite's Pedro.
Yeah, Pedro Alvarez, for sure.
Yeah.
I loved Pedro. I know a lot of us did.
Yeah.
But even after he fell apart, like I defended Pedro a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of people just gave up on him because he couldn't throw the ball to first base.
Yeah.
And then the hitting struggled, and I had to make it a point to say, like, dude, the greats, when they lose something and that's all they think about, other parts of their game will suffer. Chuck Knobloch was perennial all-star, couldn't throw to first base from second base, and just fell apart. They tried him at first. They tried him in left. It never happened for him. It ruined his career. The yips will ruin a career.
Yep.
And some guys are able to bounce back. I mean, Kevin Young was a third baseman, got the yips, moved to first, and ended up being a great first baseman and having some great years. And there's been some other guys, too, that that have been able to do it. And that was the hope for Petey. He went to first base, still hit 27 homers that year at first base.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't all lost, but there were still other, like the strikeouts kept growing, and it bothers you, man. He was a good third baseman,
Mm-hmm.
and he just lost it.
Yeah. The short time he was there, the more I'd put Gung on that list too.
Yeah, Jung Ho.
Yeah,
he was never
was
one
fun
of
to
my
watch.
favorites, but I mean, I liked him. If you want to talk about guys who were good at third base, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Ramirez, I felt like Aramis Ramirez was like, this guy's gonna be our guy.
Yeah.
That trade.
Just pulled the rug right out from under us.
Dumbest trade.
Yeah.
I haven't looked through the history, but there hasn't been one that bad since. Go ahead, tell me it was. It wasn't.
I'm not telling you it was. Not as bad as that trade.
But we're all thinking about it. We're all thinking about the Chris Archer trade.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not, I'm telling you right now, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth saying it because we talked about doing like a best or worst trades, and I don't think we're going to go down that road.
Mm-mm.
Like, I don't think we are this offseason. It's not even close. The Chris Archer trade is not even close. And I looked this up recently because I had a conversation with one of our listeners who's a friend of mine, who's actually a Cleveland Indians fan, really struggling with the Guardians thing, but he's a Guardians fan. He'll be a Guardians fan. He'll come around. He's too into it. He's a big baseball fan, and he loves listening. He used to come over and talk baseball all the time. He said Chris Archer, he thinks they're equally bad. I said it's not even close. So I looked up all the numbers, and Meadows has a 6.2 WAR in his 4 years that he's been away, and Glasnow 5.5. Now that's a counting stat. That's 4 years of a 1 point something. You know what I mean? Or maybe, a couple of years. 5.5 for in Ramirez's first 4 seasons away from Pittsburgh, it was like a 17 point something WAR. The two of them combined don't even get there.
Yeah.
Not to mention, now Shane Baz hadn't even made it yet. Right? I mean, he made it this year for a couple starts, but he hadn't even made it. The 3 guys that we got for Ramirez, and it wasn't just Ramirez, it was also Kenny Lofton, who played for the Cubs the rest of that year, 2003, and had a 1.7 WAR. Okay, so add that to the 17, even though, because I don't count any of the years beyond that from Lofton, because the team we traded him to, it was only that year.
Yeah.
We got Jose Hernandez, who made it 50-some games and we released him, and had a negative 0.1 WAR. And then we had a right-handed pitcher who never made it to the majors that we got back. And we got Bobby Hill, who had a 0.1 WAR in his time in Pittsburgh, 180 games.
Bobby.
So basically we got a 0.0 WAR in return with the two combined, minus 0.1 and, right? We got a 0.0 WAR for a guy who, in his first 4 years away, just first 4 years, had a 17.4. It was like 29 something when it was all said and done. But just
That's
in his
insane.
So that gap, add the 1.7 from there, and you're talking about an 18 WAR difference. The other trade, the Archer trade, you're talking about 6.2 and 5.5 WAR first 4 years away. But Chris Archer also gave us a 1.4 WAR, which isn't great over his time in Pittsburgh, but it's better than 0.0.
Yeah.
And so the WAR, if you're, we're not only looking at WAR, but it's the easiest way to just look at a one number to say how, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's the easiest way to just compare. And if you just look at offensive WAR, obviously because Ramirez made a lot of errors, not as many when he left as he did. He was a kid. We traded him at 25. You can't give up on a guy for that. All right. Only 2 years after he was gone did he make more than 10 errors.
It's insane.
So anyway, that was an absolutely terrible trade, and the Chris Archer trade doesn't even come close.
No.
And I still can't figure out why you traded Aramis Ramirez for those guys anyway. I can't figure it out. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's not like you were trying to win. It's not like you needed to trade him. He was only in the league for 2 years, 2 full seasons, but he was there some years before that. But you brought him up as like, what, a 19-year-old? He made his debut at 19 years old. How are you giving up on a guy like that?
Right.
Oh, he was about to get paid. But you got nothing. At least the Archer trade, it was a guy who was just entirely wrong, but he was trying to win.
Yeah.
He didn't make that trade to dump any salary. Like, he was being aggressive, thinking that Archer was going to turn it around. You could say but like he at least thought he was right. Hindsight's 20/20. We get it, but he thought he was being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, Pedro Alvarez is my favorite. Aramis Ramirez, though, man, he could have really been a stud in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
If we just would have hung on to that, and that, that was a time that maybe we could have, but whatever.
Yep.
Shortstop. This is this one was tough for me.
It was tough for me to find somebody I liked.
That's it. There were guys I liked, but like to say any of them were like my favorite players. This goes back to the Bill Mazeroski thing for me. I love like to look back at the home run, which I consider to be the greatest home run ever hit.
Mm-hmm.
Ever hit. First off,
Yep.
the only Game 7 walk-off ever. There was only one other walk-off, and that was Joe Carter's in Game 6 in World Series history.
Yeah.
So that alone, but not to mention to beat the 1960 Yankees.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that team should have never lost. They outscored us by 1 million.
Yeah.
And we won the World Series. Like, just unreal. But the pictures, the play at first base by Mickey Mantle, how in the world he got back to first base on that and ended up, like, even pushing it to the bottom of the ninth.
Yeah.
And then the fact that the home run goes over the head of Yogi Berra.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the names involved. And it's like Bill Mazeroski, right?
Yep.
A guy who wasn't
statue.
known for the home runs and hits a 430-foot bomb. Just unbelievable. And I love the fact that I can do that. Shortstop for me, there's a guy named Honus Wagner who obviously we don't even never seen, but it's so fun to say that we have in our organization one of the greatest shortstops ever.
I mean, he's one of the greatest baseball players ever.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
to me, he's literally like, I can't go and not say his name.
Right. Obviously.
But to be your favorite, that'd be rough.
Mm-hmm.
He's the most tenured Pirate, but that's pretty obvious. Like back then, if you had a good player, you didn't have to get rid of him, so you didn't.
Right.
But you got some decent players that were before our time.
Yeah.
Archie Vaughn, Dick Groat, and then there's 2 more guys that played the most. I'm looking at as a starter, right? So we're looking through this list of the most years as the guy who played the most games at that position, so the starter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's it. Wagner, Vaughn, Groat, Jack Wilson, Jay Bell, Gene Alley, and so on. But those 2 guys to me stick out. Jack Wilson, Jay Bell. Because those are the guys that while I'm watching, right, late 80s, early 90s. I'm a kid really paying attention to baseball now. You know, we've got a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
So
my number one's Jack Flash.
yeah,
And,
not Kevin Polkovich.
Remember how much I liked him?
Kevin Elster.
I used to love Polkovich. I don't really know why, but he doesn't make my list on my favorites.
Yeah, Lou Collier.
Hello.
Anyway, Pat Mears. Pat Mears is fun because I always call Nick Mears Pat Mears. And I'm always like, not Pat. But yeah, Jack Wilson, probably my favorite. I mean, we had some really rough teams, and he was at least fun to watch during those years.
Yeah.
And I just don't know, like, throughout those years, I know we had Brian Giles, but that was kind of short as far as, like, that time. And then we had Jason Bay that we got for Brian Giles, which I never really loved Jason Bay.
Yeah.
But he was there. And, like, who was it? I mean, Wilson only played 1 year with McCutchen. So, who else did you really... I mean, Freddie Sanchez, right? The catchers, that was Jason Kendall was still your guy. He kind of turned it over to Jack Wilson.
About shortstops.
We are, but what I'm saying is, like, who else on that team was your favorite player?
Okay, so we did this list completely different then. Because I'm just looking through shortstops alone, just picking my favorite guys.
Well, I am, but I'm saying, like, he would have been my favorite player on that team.
I got you.
I'm giving you the reason why he was my favorite player.
I got you.
Because when I look at the roster that he played with,
yeah,
none of those other guys would have been my favorite player. Like I said, Jason Kendall, there was a little bit of overlap there. When Kendall left, when Kendall left, who else was I going to, like, year in and year out root for? Right field was awful. Craig Wilson, Matt Lawton, Jeremy Burnitz, and then Xavier Nady, Brandon Moss. What? It's all over the place. Center field was guys like Tyke Redmond, Chris Duffy, Nate McLouth, and then finally McCutchen, but that was only 1 year with Jack Wilson, and then it was, after that it was different.
Yeah.
But first base, you had that Sean Casey year, but you had your Randall Simon. Kevin Young was also barely there and then gone. It was Jack Wilson was the only one left.
Yeah.
So he was your guy that was your favorite player. There wasn't anybody else. Like I said, I mean, if you were a Brian Giles or a Jason Bay fan.
Yeah.
Which I was, but Jack Wilson was the guy who ended up.
He was like a staple.
For me, Giles was never my favorite player because I was still a Jason Kendall fan. As my favorite player, if you only have one. Right. If you're somebody who only has one. We were losing a lot of games then, so I only had one.
Yeah.
To be fair, Ken Griffey Jr. was my favorite player.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Ken Griffey Jr. was your favorite player's favorite player.
Yeah, but he was my favorite player. Period. Ever.
Yeah.
Of all time. Anyway. So I'm just trying to defend, because that's why I said shortstop was a difficult one for me, because, like, I watched a lot of Jay Bell, but Jay Bell wasn't my favorite player. Andy Van Slyke was.
Yeah.
Little
sneak peek
there, maybe. Anyway, sorry. So you had Jack Wilson, but I was just defending Jack. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm like, it could have been easy to just say Jack Wilson was my favorite player, but I thought we were talking, so. Outfield, let's go. Left field.
I got 3 on mine. Well, 4. But Marte and Dickerson are probably my top 2.
Okay. Who else do you have on that?
Reynolds and Giles.
Reynolds and Giles, okay.
Yeah.
Some people consider those two guys as center fielders.
See, I consider Giles a left fielder.
I do too.
I consider Reynolds a center fielder.
Giles had better years when he played center field in Pittsburgh, like as far as like production and WAR, but that catch he made in left field at PNC Park, and for me, he brought in PNC Park in left field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I also consider him a left fielder. Although I do not have Giles on my list, I was diehard Jason Kendall guy, Aramis Ramirez guy. Giles was great, but I always felt like I was a kid, right? We got Giles from Cleveland. He was Cleveland's guy that came here, and then we shipped him off to. So, like, for me, that was it. I was Aramis Ramirez, Jason Kendall, Rob Makoviak.
It's fair. That's fair. I mean, but we did build PNC Park for Giles, and then we traded him.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, I think. There's a lot of truth to that. Okay. So, for me, so Brian Reynolds. Not a center fielder, huh?
Oh, he's on my center field list too.
He is. So you're just dead into Brian Reynolds right now. I love that.
Yeah, he's my favorite player.
I think that Brian Reynolds is a left fielder playing center field right now. I just think he's a good enough player that he can do it fine. He did not make my center field list, but that's because of my center field list. Starling Marte is my favorite left fielder. I love the Corey Dickerson bring up, though. I know he's short-lived, but I really liked him when he was here.
I did too.
But no, for me, it's easy. It's Starling Marte. It's Starling Marte.
Marte's my number one.
Ralph Kiner's a fun guy to look back at, but yeah, Marte is my number one. Center field, I'm going to go first because this is easy. These are my two favorite players ever as far as Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr.'s all-time number one. But then it's Andrew McCutchen, Andy Van Slyke. I dressed up as Andy Van Slyke for Halloween for like 5 straight years, I think. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. He was my favorite player when I was a kid on the Pirates. Ken Griffey Jr. still favorite player, period. But it was Andy Van Slyke. It's always been center fielders for me. Probably why I ended up being a center fielder. Even though I was an infielder as a kid, I ended up playing center field. And that's not even close to a coincidence. It's Andy Van Slyke, and then it was Andrew McCutchen for me. And those were my favorite players on the Pirates.
Yeah.
Wonder what that... I mean, that's a big gap. But, like, Van Slyke was done in 94, and then McCutchen. So it was a lot of different guys throughout those times. Or maybe not. Maybe it was Kendall Wilson and then McCutchen. Yeah. That's weird. Anyway, Andy Van Slyke and Andrew McCutchen. I cannot pick between the two.
Yeah, I had McCutchen and Reynolds.
Okay. McCutchen 9 years, Van Slyke 8 years. Kerry, Verdon, and Wayner longer tenured. That stinks. Just that them two aren't. I mean, Wayner's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's easy for me. And I can't.
Interesting.
Every other position I picked one.
Yeah.
But I can't there.
Interesting. Just a little bring up is that Joe DiMaggio's brother played center field for us for 5 years.
Yeah, I don't think I realized that either. Not Jermaine Allensworth didn't make your list?
Played pretty well. No, he didn't.
Jacob Brumfield.
Surprisingly enough.
Do you remember some of the first basemen? We already talked about Tyke Redmond, Tyke Redmond, Chris Duffy. You still with me here? Okay. Sorry, your video was like choppy a little bit,
but Omar Moreno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Vince DiMaggio.
Yeah, you're
Sorry,
breaking up just a little bit here. So let's keep moving because I really had a hard time in right field.
Yeah. I'm hard pressed not to bring up Clemente.
I'm not hard pressed not to. It's Roberto Clemente.
I mean,
he's my favorite.
How can
I didn't watch him play, but probably the most storied Pirate and maybe right fielder in MLB history. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be on everybody's list.
Yeah.
It's that Ken Griffey Jr. quote, your favorite player's favorite player. Roberto Clemente is, possibly some of your favorite players' reason why they play baseball. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Any Latin
Yeah.
player, I mean, they're going to look at the reason why, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
But I also had Tabata,
Tabata.
Jose Guillen,
Jose Guillen with
and
the
Marlon
arm.
Byrd.
Marlon Byrd. That was a big, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Kutch was my guy, but man, when Polanco was coming up, he was so much fun to watch too. But just, he was never clicked to be like your favorite player. You know what I mean? For some people, he was because he's so much fun. I don't want that to be lost. I know we're frustrated. Injuries really ruined him.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. He wasn't a bad player. He just, injuries got him. But man, to look back as a player, as a fan who looks back, Clemente, like, it's dreamy to watch footage of him, to see footage of him. I get in this weird state of mind, in like some sort of state of awe to be able to watch clips of him. I always slow those moments down. Kind of akin to the way that I watch footage of Babe Ruth. Just in this like that's a legend. Yeah. It's different when you talk about like Andy Van Slyke, Andrew McCutchen. Those are my favorite players. I loved watching them. But there's something legendary about watching clips of Roberto Clemente that just make me kind of like, I don't even get that feeling with Mazeroski. The home run, yes.
Yeah.
But like other clips of Mazeroski's, it's not the same. There's something about seeing those clips of Clemente grabbing that ball and throwing it into third and having that dude say, I'm not going. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even, he didn't even throw anybody out. He just threw it so well that they were like, nah, dude, I'm not even going. I'm not touching that. I already know who's out there. There's that level of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I also wrote down Dave Parker because, like, me and the boys are bopping. You know what I mean? Like, that 79 team is so much fun to look back at. We already talked about Stargel a little bit. And Dave Parker is that, fun too. That's why it was that hard for me. Polanco was never a favorite. And the merry-go-round, I guess I brought up Orlando Merced for first base a little bit, and he played a lot of right field too. So there's a little bit of that, the years that he played right field. Outside of that, like, I mean, who are you going to say? I mean, Bonilla had, the third base right field thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, like, outside of that, I just really don't know. Like, there just wasn't guys that I watched.
Wasn't Yoshi?
No, it wasn't Yoshi. No, it wasn't Reggie Sanders, who had a really good year in Pittsburgh. But just none of those guys, you know what I mean? Right field just hasn't been a strong position. And I still kind of consider Jose Tabata, when I think of him, I think of left field. But
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Milkman. No, not really.
No.
Okay.
He was pretty good for us, but I just didn't like him.
Yeah, that's just was never a thing. But yeah, it's Roberto Clemente for me, and it's not even close, but it's that, like, I really struggle with right field, which is why we really needed Polanco to come through.
Yeah.
And he didn't. Boy, what Austin Meadows could have done in right field. And we're still looking at the same position. Who the heck's going to play right field for us? We have no idea. Why can't we figure out first base and right field? Garrett Jones did his best to figure out those two positions, but we had Josh Bell for like a minute at first base, but he really stunk defensively. Yeah. He just hit so good that he never could. We didn't even talk about him at first base, which is kind of interesting. But what a year, 2019.
Oh, dude.
He was my daughter's favorite player. For what it's worth.
Yeah.
She doesn't care, but wait a minute.
Let's go, Bucks.
There you go.
Anyway, pitching. How hard was starting pitching for you, the former pitcher?
It was rough. There's a lot of pitchers.
But was there a lot of favorites?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I wouldn't say it's hard for me when I'm talking pitching to say favorites because there's just so many different styles of pitching, and I just liked picking apart styles. Like Paul Maholm, I liked watching him pitch.
Yeah?
I liked watching him work the zone and just, he didn't throw hard.
You have a nuance that I'm not going to have. I'm going to do my list really quick. I know just because it's easy. My favorite Pirates pitcher has been Jameson Taillon. I love rooting for a guy that's been through all that. It's not even and it's not like I had so many positions where I was like, Marte, McCutchen, Van Slyke, Clemente, Pedro, those were easy. Mm-hmm. But I was like, yeah, I guess Jameson Taillon's really my favorite pitcher. Outside of him, Francisco Liriano, and I had the Doug Drabeck hair when I was a kid.
Yes, I was going to say Doug Drabeck.
But still, I never was like, oh, Doug Drabeck. I mean, just because he was awesome and he won a Cy, you know what I mean? He won a Cy Young. That's easy. But
it's not Tim Wakefield.
No. Anyway, so your list is long?
It is.
Who's your favorite?
It's hard.
Okay.
Burnett's up there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't write him down, but yeah, I mean, he was... For me, that team, that was... Francisco Liriano was my favorite pitcher of that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Of that crew.
Yeah. Taillon is always fun to root for.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Cole was fun to root for. But they just didn't fit the mold for Searage, and so they had their little bit of struggles. But even with that, Taillon, he had a lot.
Taillon was good, and he did kind of fit that mold. He could do it all.
Yeah,
he had the two seam. He had, you know what I mean.
Hmm. But I had Paul Maholm, AJ Burnett. I loved watching Charlie Morton pitch. I just wish he could have been.
Yeah.
I just wish he could have been more consistent in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But when he was on his game, man, he's fun to watch. Esteban Loaiza.
Yeah.
Maybe just because of his name, but because I don't remember him pitching a whole lot.
I mean, he just wasn't that good, but.
Denny Nagel.
Denny Nagel was good. Yeah. Hitter.
Stan Belinda.
But Stan Belinda's a relief pitcher. I thought we were doing relief pitchers.
He was a starter too.
Yeah, but he was a reliever.
But he was a relief pitcher.
Did he? How much did Stan Belinda start?
He popped up on the starters.
Did he?
And that sidearm just...
Sidearm was a lot of fun. He started 0 games in his 12-year major league career. He started 0 games.
Yeah.
That actually surprised me a little bit that he started 0.
Yeah, I thought I must have overlapped a column or something.
He finished 263 games with 79 saves. You finished that many games, you would think you would have more saves than that.
He were probably in losing games they were losing. He finished up.
Now, this is correct. So in Pittsburgh, he had 61 of those saves and 135 games finished with a 3.52 ERA. The numbers were not as kind to him for other teams. But his 5 years in Pittsburgh, with the sidearm, he was one of my favorite relief pitchers. But anyway, we are kind of getting a little bit on time. I hate that that's for pitching for you when you have this huge list. But keep going through your starters.
I mean, I was reaching the end there.
Okay.
Liriano.
I loved watching Liriano. Yeah. He was my favorite pitcher of that crew. But even then, even during that time, I was just waiting for Taillon to get there, and I couldn't wait. Now, you know what I mean? Probably one of the first pitchers, because he was drafted the year before Cole.
Yeah.
So Taillon was one of those first pitchers that I remember. I mean, we could all talk about like Chris Benson was the big time guy, but like I wasn't following him from the time he was drafted and being
Right.
excited about it. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
When I was digging deep, like Jameson Taillon, from the time he was drafted, I couldn't wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of the draft, real quick, I'm going to give you this little trivia.
okay.
Who was the first ever player drafted in the history of the Major League Draft?
I used to know that. Go ahead.
Gene Lamont.
Yeah. That's why I used to know that. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that. But I did. I do
just-
remember the.
Yeah. I was just
that
talking to somebody
real?
today and he brought it up. Yeah.
Did you fact check that?
No.
Trust but
because
verify.
he was talking to me. He lived in Texas, and long story short, he knew a guy who used to play in the MLB who was good friends with.
That's not right. Is that the Pirates' first ever? Gene Lamont was drafted 13th overall by the Tigers that year.
I didn't fact check it then.
Rick Monday.
Rick Monday.
Rick Monday, of course.
So somebody probably told this guy that he was drafted in the first ever.
Yeah, that wasn't even
draft.
the Pirates' first. I wonder where you get, you know what I mean? Doug
Yeah.
Dickerson was the Pirates' first ever.
Hmm.
Gene Lamont,
Wow.
though, in the first round of the first ever.
There we go.
But
Maybe that's where he got his fact mixed up.
Rick Monday, first ever draft pick. All-star. I mean, Rick Monday, he's the guy who
I don't.
you don't remember Rick Monday's the guy where the dude was burning the flag on the field, and Rick Monday went over and swooped it up and said, "You ain't burning that flag on this field." For the Cubs.
Yeah.
But he was drafted by the Kansas City Athletics.
Anyway.
Okay, sorry. I
My
was
bad.
like, Gene Lamont, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, you tell your friend he's wrong.
Yeah.
But he was in the first round of the
Yeah.
first ever draft. 13th overall. That's still, he's
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Relievers?
Yeah. I actually have a huge list here. And it's not because I really love guys, but boy, I have one guy bold here. I'm not sure he's my favorite, but dude, I know it's short, but it's David Bednar is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So he's already there because he's a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I got Bednar, Melanson, Joel Hanrahan, Tony Watson, Justin Wilson. Tony Watson, Justin Wilson together was like, oh my gosh. Jared Hughes, love that guy. Mike Gonzalez, which we brought up, and Stan Belinda.
And Matt Capps.
Matt Capps?
And we have very similar lists.
Okay. Who did you not put on? Well, Stan Belinda, because you had him as a starter.
I didn't have Jared Hughes on mine. I didn't really care for Hughes.
Oh, I love Hughes. He's so much fun. He's panting and sticking that head and doing that head thing. And I always thought he was kind of underrated. Like
I always thought he was
he's got
good.
solid numbers, and I just felt like we let him go. I was like, really? He was one of those guys that really benefited from the philosophy of the Pirates.
Yeah.
Really benefited.
Yeah.
That heavy two seam that just ground balls. That guy just fit the mold.
I'm not discrediting anything he did on the mound.
It's a good point though. We're talking about favorites, and he was one of my favorites because you know who else was fun to watch? Not fun, but fun to watch was the
Franmil Reyes.
Franmil Reyes? No, I don't never.
No. I'm sorry. I know who you're thinking. I know who you're gonna say, but I can't think of his name. This guy.
Mike Fetters.
That's it.
How did you come up with Franmil Reyes.
I don't know. He's a hitter for the Guardians.
Yeah. Mike Fetters.
Sometimes
You got to watch YouTube. You got to watch YouTube. We're going to do this together. Ready? Wait. You guys got to pull up the YouTube video to watch how ridiculous we look right there. That's funny. So I have so I did this. I typed a bunch of numbers. I made one bold. Mm-hmm. I have Tony Watson there. But it might be Mark the Shark Melanson.
He just always made me nervous.
Really?
I mean, I always kind of knew he was going to get the job done, but he like always had to have traffic on the bases.
Because he wasn't a big strikeout guy. Tony Watson was just so dominant, but he was just so calm and just... I don't know, man. That is interesting. It's got to be Mark Melanson, though. Of like my favorite, like Mark the Shark. And he's just like a good dude and a nice guy.
Absolutely.
Jared Hughes,
he's on my list.
Jared Hughes and the Tony Watson, Justin Wilson, they would have to be together, those two lefties. Wilson had that like 1 year when he was like throwing 100. It was like most years it was like, yeah, he's popping 97. But that 1 year was like, he hit 100 multiple times, and it was like, dang, dude. Yeah. Just fastball slider, and Watson was the sinker slider, and could bring the heat too. But as far as like fun, Melanson and Hughes probably for me. And Stan Belinda, but
yeah,
that's more of a younger me, and it was just because he threw sidearm, which is why a lot of people liked Kent Colvey.
Yeah, I really, really liked, and it was short, but I liked Gonzo, Mike Gonzalez.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, if things were a little bit different, maybe we'd be talking about Felipe Rivera.
Yeah,
but then as soon or Vasquez, or you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But what an idiot. But anyway.
Yeah.
Certainly can't make any kind of list on that, but
nope.
But just to say, just for the sake of it, I mean, you remember like all the dugout stuff where they were doing like they had that song they were singing, da 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 da, and you always had Polanco right in the middle of it. But like Felipe was the dude turning the tables; he was the one playing the song. You know what I mean? Like he could have been. You had a nickname called Nightmare. You threw 102. You know what I mean? Like what? That sucks.
Yeah,
could have been there on that list, but certainly ruined all of that.
Yeah.
So, man, that was fun.
Yeah, had a good time.
Fun just to look back over those lists and think about, the time, like when you were a kid and watched the Pirates as a kid and all those, for me, Van Slyke and Doug Drabeck and Jack Wilson and, you know what I mean? Notice neither one of us said Barry Bonds.
Yep.
Neither one of us said that.
Nope.
Man. Or Al Martin.
Sticking to it. Al's Army.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, this is like a weird way to say. Like I said, it's the 21st. This is Tuesday, but we just decided to record this early so we didn't have to worry about it. I mean, I'll be traveling and stuff like that, and it's just, too much. But here's where we say, I hope you had a nice Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Because it hasn't happened yet for us. But you getting anything for Christmas? Hey, wait, here we go. We're adults. What did you get for Christmas? What was your cool things you got for Christmas?
I honestly don't know.
You don't know what you're getting, what you got for Christmas.
It's the 21st.
You don't know?
The wife and I really we don't tell each other what we're getting each other.
I don't like surprises. I don't
If
like.
it's not a surprise to her, she doesn't even want it.
Okay.
Now, granted, we feed each other ideas.
Well, yeah.
Starting in like
What
August.
if you get something you don't like or you don't want?
It doesn't happen.
Okay.
It hasn't happened to us yet.
Hasn't happened yet. I am like, man, I am, well, you know, I don't like to have a lot of things.
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard because I don't like to like get something that I don't really want, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just hard for me when we're talking about, you know, me and Katie and what we're buying for you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, dude, I'm going to buy mine. You're going to buy yours and we're going to open them.
I'm probably going to get a vehicle.
Yeah, that's nuts for Christmas. You're going to get a vehicle because you're going to get a vehicle.
I'm going to get a vehicle because my vehicle is totaled by a deer.
Yes.
And I'm getting some insurance money back, and I'm going to be able
It's
to put
just a
stuff
timing
down.
thing.
The timing
not really
thing.
a Christmas
I'm going to end up right, but I'm probably going to get it on Thursday before Christmas.
I see what you're saying, but like that's not a Christmas present.
I know.
Okay. Well, I'm getting a cover for my Roadcaster Pro. I just buy stuff, dude, and then I say, "Oh, it's close. I'll wait and wrap it up." I'm getting the Stream Deck. We talked about that. You and I did.
Yeah.
And some Vans snow boots.
All right.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think we just do like things like that. I could just keep buying things and say, this is Christmas. A couple years ago, I got a monitor like for Black Friday. Hooked it up when it got here, but that was my Christmas present that year. That was like, if you're going to spend money, like I don't have any money to buy anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a nerd, tech nerd. I mean, I said to say cool. Vans, right? I get Vans. It's not all tech. I would be okay with it being all tech. Is the only thing that I don't mind having a ton of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd have like 3 or 4 mics if I could. I only have one mouth. What did you want for Christmas? If you were gonna buy your own self one gift, Ashley's not allowed to listen to this episode. You're allowed to buy yourself one gift this year. What is it? And a car doesn't count.
That's too hard.
Really?
Yeah, because nothing really jumped out at me this year.
Okay.
Last year it was a softball bat, and I got it.
There you go. I remember that. I played a part in you getting that.
Yeah.
So, all right, man.
Buy one, get one free, so I got 2.
Yeah. And it was like when she was like, hey, if you do this, you can get one and it'd be for free. And then I was like, no, like he'll want these too. Yeah. Like, I remember that conversation, but yeah, I don't know what, I bought the things I'm getting. So
yeah,
apparently that's what I liked. I mean, they were also like, hey, these were good deals, or this is something that I would really use. The Stream Deck is really going to help me out when we do this. So I'm using it on mobile right now, but you have to pay for that once the trial ends.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to have a dedicated thing. That's going to be cool. Or that is cool. I'm so glad I got that. Because this is after Christmas. This is the 27th. Is that when people are listening? The week of the 27th. Yes.
Yeah. I got one little thing to add on here to the end of this.
All right.
Christmas is over. Next up is New Year's.
Okay.
We all know what New Year's brings. You know, if you're going to go to a party, if you're going to have fun, if you're going to let loose, do me one single favor. Please get a driver. Yeah. Please stay at a hotel. Just be smart. Just be smart.
Yeah.
There's no judgment thrown towards anybody New Year's. Have fun, have a good time. Just leave the keys somewhere else.
Hey, maybe our next episode we record, which will be like the first week of January, we'll do some Pirates resolutions. So with that said, I usually play a song at the end of this thing to get us out of here, and we're starting our third song. I picked the first one. I'm just going to go back to that one, actually, because it had a cool vibe to it. Anyway,
Yeah.
Those of you who are writing in, and those of you who aren't, write in and let us know, first off, some of your favorite players, but also give us some New Year's resolutions for the Pirates. That's going to be fun. Okay?
Yeah.
And we'll think of ours. I mean, my guess is there's definitely going to still be a lockout, so we're not going to have anything else to talk about. So,
Yeah.
2022 New Year's resolutions for the Pirates. All right, man. Fun time. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing this early and during the week. I know it's not normal for us, but
yeah,
it's going to make things a little bit easier this weekend. So, Merry Christmas, everybody.
And Happy New Year.
Let's go, Bucks.
Let's go, Bucks.
Let's go, Bucks.